countdown always gives me nerves.
All right, everybody, welcome to the party. We've got David here from Omniscient, and as people kind of hop in, filter in, we will ask some questions. So, David, for first question of the day, what is your go-to breakfast? What did you have either this morning or most recently if you're not a breakfast person?
I like overnight oats with some blueberries and maple syrup. That's very boring, but my simple go-to, just prep it the night before. It's easy.
Absolutely. So you make it yourself? You're not like have you ever bought like the actual company overnight oats?
I have, and it's expensive for what it is. I mean, I'll go to Trader Joe's and it's like, wait, $5 for overnight oats? I can make this for like 20 cents. And
Yeah.
it's easy. I can add all the flavorings and stuff I want myself. How about
Uh,
you?
Awesome. Yeah, I usually am not a breakfast person, so I usually drink like coffee with like I add like a protein powder and like a collagen and then like a bunch of random stuff to it. And so it's like I like it's like super coffee, I guess, where it has like normal
Yeah.
coffee plus of a bunch of other stuff is my go-to. And then on the weekends, I'm a like an eggs with bacon and toast, like classic American breakfast type of person.
Yeah, I like to indulge on the weekends. I used to not eat breakfast for years, like doing intermittent fasting. I would have like coffee with coconut oil in it, which if you're not used to that, don't just go try it out. There's consequences.
Yes.
Um, but I was like starting to work out more. And my trainer was like, "Hey, you need to eat breakfast. Like you just need more calories." So I don't. Yeah, so that's why I started eating breakfast again.
Awesome. Well, cool. Everybody, as they're hopping in here from all over, people feel free to drop questions as things come up. Everyone who has been on a workshop with us before is do not hesitate to drop questions in the chat. Like it's like a interactive here. We're gonna give David the mic, and we're gonna go from there. But I'd love to do a quick like intro here, David. So you currently are running Omniscient. Can you give me a background, give the people like what is Omniscient? What are you guys currently doing? Where are you currently going? And then we will kind of I'll give you the mic and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I think someone's having some technical issues. Sorry, Kathy. I hope you figure that out. But I'm David Kim. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Omniscient Digital. We specialize in SEO and whatever you want to call GEO, AEO for B2B software companies. We work with companies ranging from like early stage startups to massive household enterprise companies that everyone here probably knows of. And lately, we've been starting to shift even more towards the AI search space because that is a pretty big talking point where we're all here today. And there's also an aspect of beyond the search where how do you infuse AI workflows into your go-to-market and particularly in SEO and content. So we're starting to help some clients with that too.
Awesome. Well, let's just hop into it. I'll give you the stage here, and I'm excited to hear. And I'll pause you for some questions as they come in, and let's go for it.
Wonderful. All right. So, as JJ mentioned, I'm happy to answer questions as we go versus waiting until the end. So, if there's any questions, feel free to just drop them in the chat. Um, what I want to start with here is there's definitely been a vibe shift in SEO and content, just probably in marketing in general. Seems like every day I'm on LinkedIn, which I try not to spend as much time on anymore. Nothing's working, everything's dying. So who knows what our jobs are anymore? But at least when we speak about SEO, what worked in 2018 is not working in 2025 right now. I still kind of hear folks talking about older concepts that may not be as relevant. Like if someone's talking about the skyscraper technique, red flags all around. So what I want to also caveat is before we get into everything is what I'm going to share what's working for us today, just based on experiments, what we're doing for clients, what we're doing for ourselves, and I'll actually share like our real data to show what's working. But as we all know, the space is moving really quickly. Things are changing day to day, week to week, and what's working now may not work in the future. And so take all this as, hey, this is working now, and perhaps there's an arbitrage opportunity, but maybe in a year or so, we're going to continue evolving, perhaps even sooner than that. So a lot of us probably saw this chart a couple months ago around traffic dipping for pretty big B2B software company. I won't say who the company is, but I might have worked for them in a past life. And this made the rounds for a while. And there is kind of this decoupling of search performance where search impressions are going up, and until recently with like Google not showing 100 search results anymore, but impressions were rising, clicks were dropping due to AI overviews, AI mode. You get the answer quickly. Even from a consumer standpoint, I'm finding that I just like the answer that I'm given, and sometimes I'll click in. So it's interesting to observe how we're each also using search. And LLM referral traffic has been going up. So this is our actual traffic from LLMs, from ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity. You'll notice is not a ton in absolute volume, but it's going up because more people are adopting these tools over the last 2 years or so, and there are some clickable opportunities with citations and things like that in the outputs. We are starting to notice that there's been a bit of a plateau in this. Perhaps people are realizing that there's a limit to how to use LLM search, and there's actually been an increase in organic. But we'll get more into that later. And I'll also add, I have a lingering cough, so if I randomly mute, it's because I'm coughing off screen. So with that referral traffic, here's the type of stuff that we're seeing right now. So this is a pretty big company, decent sized budget, and we have this field in our MQL forms where we just ask, like, how did you find out about us? Open text field. Sometimes people put the most random things in here, but we often see ChatGPT. In this case, they even share details of what they did to get us as a recommendation. And this is an example of how we show up in some of these LLM outputs. So I'm just trying to show we're actually doing the things that we're doing for clients, for ourselves, because we're kind of case study number one. And so we're going to go into what all that looks like. Today, we're going to talk about how your brand appears. And that means being able to actually look at and measure visibility and how you appear. That not just visibility, but mapping it all the way down to pipeline and self-reported attribution, which I just showed. We're going to talk about how to increase the probability of appearing in AI outputs and the idea of building a brand worth mentioning. So the way we view measuring performance from AI outputs is pretty simplified. It's a simple model that we use. It's not 100% accurate. No model is accurate, but this is how we kind of frame it so that we have something to work from. So first, we're looking at how visible are we in AI in general, and how often do we appear, and are we even at the table to influence buying decisions? The second is, it's one thing to be visible, but are we presented in a way we want to be presented? Are we presented in a way that's negative because people on Reddit don't like our product? We want to make sure that we're aware of that. So we go from visibility, making sure we're presented in the way that we want. And when people find us in AI, are they going to our website or are they just stopping there? So the next step down is there referral traffic from these LLMs? And from there, is the referral traffic actually converting? And so this is where folks might say, hey, I want to segment by people who were referred from an LLM and it converted. What we're finding is it's helpful to have that self-reported attribution, because oftentimes that last touch attribution is not the same thing as what people report as self-reported. I'm going to show a chart that shows how many conversions we got where people said they found us through an LLM, but the refer tag actually says something like organic or direct. So that's really important here to have multiple data points to triangulate. And of course, there's revenue. And we typically lean on self-reported attribution for when we look at revenue. All right, so when we look at visibility and influence, very straightforward questions here. So how frequently do you appear in LLMs against your key prompts? We often recommend a tool called peek.ai. That's peec.ai. We have no affiliation. We just use their product, and their team's awesome and very responsive. There are a plethora of products you can use for this. They all mostly do kind of the same thing, but that allows you to track your key prompts. It'll update the outputs every day and tells you what pages are getting cited, which gives you hints and tips on what you should do about visibility. And we'll get into exactly how to appear in those outputs and be a cited source. One thing I want to call out here is even when you're visible, you may not be presented the way you want. And one of the examples is we have a client who came to us and said, we appear in ChatGPT, but all ChatGPT says about it, our differentiator, is that we integrate within our ecosystem of products. It says nothing about integrating with other products. It says nothing about the other features or anything that's unique about their product. And that's a symptom of just a company that had this product for over a decade, and every page you see about them says that their differentiator is that they're integrated within their ecosystem of products. And so this is a product marketing challenge, and we want to make sure that when you're mentioned in these outputs, that you're described and positioned in the way you want to be positioned.
And David, just to hop in there, it's peec.ai. Is that the correct one?
Yes. Yeah, that's
correct.
right.
Awesome.
Thanks for confirming.
Yeah.
And this is an example of that. So once GEO, this is kind of meta, but once GEO became a terminology that we noticed, we were already kind of doing these things for our clients and realized, okay, this is whether it's GEO or AEO, we have to appear because people are going to go to ChatGPT and ask for GEO or AEO agencies. So that's where we started doing our own sort of campaign to figure out how we can show up in these outputs. So if you ever look up Omniscient, I'm willing to bet money that it says something similar to us being an organic growth agency that helps B2B software companies. There's going to be some variation, but that's kind of the consistent positioning and framing for our brand across the board. And this is, when you look at this output, this is another view actually in Peak that shows the actual URLs that are cited for a given prompt. So here the prompt is, what are some of the best geo agencies? Here are all the pages that get cited. Now, when we think about referral traffic, this is also a pretty straightforward view you can get. If you have GA4, I think JJ, you actually have some templates for this in Looker Studio where you can connect GA4 and it'll filter out based on, it might be either refer page or UTM medium or source that shows how much LLM traffic you're getting to your website. This is something that's very top of mind for a lot of execs right now. And honestly, it's not the most helpful thing because you know that the traffic is coming, but now what do you do about it? And it's more upstream that you need to focus on, which is getting that visibility in the first place. But it's helpful to understand which platforms drive the most traffic. In most cases, it's ChatGPT, surprise, surprise, and understanding which pages appear in LLM outputs and get clicks. And then next is, how are these users actually behaving on their website? From our data, working with clients and on our own website, we find that people who come from LLM platforms have a higher rate of conversion than people who come from organic search, for example. And our hypothesis is these folks have spent some time in these LLMs doing a bunch of research and narrowing in their buying, their short list of potential vendors, that once they land on your website, they've probably already done the research and feel some level of confidence of wanting to talk to you. So it doesn't necessarily mean if someone uses an LLM, they will more likely buy. It just means that that research happened much more quickly there. All right, I already shared this, but this is that referral traffic coming to our site. And you'll see that the referral traffic isn't that massive. There isn't like a big hockey stick going on here. And you can see like on the left are our MQLs, on the right are leads from LLMs. You'll see that there has been an increase in the last couple of months, but there are a couple things there. So one is you need to consider that just more people are starting to use these LLMs for research. And two, if you look at absolute numbers, it's not a massive number right now. And for us, I mean, we're smaller than some of our clients or most of our clients, but even for our larger clients, their LLM traffic makes up about 1% to 2% of absolute traffic. So it's not a massive number. For conversions, it lands at about that percentage as well. I'm sure there's some variation, but the takeaway there is Yes, pay attention to GEO. Yes, invest here and figure out how to make it part of your marketing portfolio. Don't ignore traditional SEO because organic search and traditional search in Google and sometimes Bing, that's actually growing. If you look at research from like Spark Turo recently. All right, so this is the big question here. So the question, once you get all that referral traffic, you get the self-report attribution. Are these folks actually becoming MQLs, SQLs, pipeline? How well are they converting into close-won deals? And how does this compare to your other channels? The question is really understanding how LLMs play into discovery and decision-making. We will jump on a sales call, and if someone said that they found us through ChatGPT, we have actually asked them, what prompt did you use? Can you screen share? And what was surprising is they were more than happy to share that. It wasn't something they felt like they needed to protect. They showed us the prompt. They showed us what other competitors showed up alongside us. They explained to us why they wanted to reach out and talk to us instead. What was it about our messaging and positioning? So you can get a lot of intel here. And I'll also add, this is something we recommend all clients do. Just add an open text field asking how they found out about you. It might be easier or harder at some organizations to do this than others. One client was pretty risk averse. They were scared that this would decrease conversions. I would say, hey, maybe you want to split test it. So half people see it, half don't. You can see if it actually negatively impacts conversions. I think someone else might be better, more well-spoken to CRO than I am, but I would outweigh the value of getting this insight over potential like slight decrease in conversion, because that helps you actually triangulate and understand what people are actually using to find you in these LLM prompts. So again, follow up. This is pretty important, whether it's you directly as a marketer or if it's your sales team, if you're a CEO, follow up and ask how they found you. And this really just gets down to marketing 101. It's getting the voice of customer. What we always do is listen to sales calls, hear the actual language that people are using to describe their challenges, pain points, solutions they're looking for. Use that to inform SEO programs, what prompts you track, etc. If you can get them to actually show you in writing what they put into these LLMs, that's a gold mine to help you not just figure out what prompts to track, but how to speak to those actual pain points and challenges. So this shouldn't feel like anything new, but it's just another usage of that voice of customer research.
How much do you change your messaging, or do you recommend clients, I guess, in this case, if you're, let's just, I don't know, let's just say, for example, let's just use the AEO example versus GEO versus whatever EO, what people want to do. Okay, so GEO is now a thing people might be looking for, but maybe it's a little bit like, hey, it's not a very common thing, but it happens every once in a while. How do you decide, hey, let's also go after that? Is there any risk of doing that? Or diluting the actual thing that you're trying to rank for? What are your kind of thoughts around going after the new thing, the new verbiage, the new slang on the block when you try to update your content strategy?
Yeah, well, because we're a small team, we're not updating our site very frequently, unfortunately. But the way that we've been approaching it is as we get these data points from sales calls and um, it's more qualitative, we then try to validate that on future sales calls. So, hey, we keep hearing prospects ask about this thing and they're using this language. Okay, let me see if I speak about it this way on the next call, if that lands better than the way I just described it. So it's very qualitative. And then once we do that a handful of times and find that it lands, then we say, okay, in this example, AEO is probably going to be the acronym that sticks instead of GEO, because some folks and companies are starting to use that a lot more. So in our mind is, okay, our sales decks should probably start saying AEO. We're actually seeing this validated because from our contact forms, people are saying, I want help with AEO instead of GEO more frequently. So it's more of a product marketing question, and we're kind of figuring that out as we go right now.
Yeah. always interesting to like hear that, especially like when you have so many different people where it's like, hey, like we work with a customer in like the gifting space. So they do a lot of like corporate gifting, and it's like they always like struggle to try to figure out the difference between like people who are looking for like incentives, like, hey, how do we how do we incentivize like holidays, right? Versus like corporate gifting structures or like those type of different things. So I'm always just kind of curious of like building the like, I guess, demand generation of like the keyword doesn't exist versus capturing every possible strand of like, hey, this is like 5% more. So yeah, super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, we're having that with a client right now, and I can speak to it from the angle of working with a client and also for
Yeah.
ourselves. So for ourselves, for AEO and GEO, we want to show up for both. Like for organic search, if someone searches for either of those, we want to show up. We want to show up for LLM optimization. We have a client who they're in the like security and cybersecurity awareness training space, and their competitors will call like their competitors position as human risk management. Like, hey, humans are a risk. Like, there's a lot of phishing and scams going on right
Mhm.
now. But our client says we don't want to be called that. Like, that's language that our competitors are using, but that's not what we would call ourselves. And what we're advising them is, well, if you're getting put up against your competitors and your prospects are probably comparing you to your competitors, maybe you want to show up on that short list, even if you don't necessarily want to call yourselves that. If decision makers are using that language, perhaps you do want to show up. And great, if they decide, hey, that your competitor is better for this human risk management concept, then they'll go with your competitor. But at least you show up so that you're at the table essentially, and they might decide, hey, I'd rather go with you instead of your competitor. But it's one of those challenges where you have to decide if you even want to show up, and if the answer is yes, like what's the risk of that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
different story if you're choosing categories on like G2 and like where you want to show up, because that feels a bit more permanent.
yeah. It's not like you're just changing like, hey, we're now a software, now we're an agency, now we're something else.
Yeah.
One more question, kind of in the chat here, while before you get going is or get moving is around like reporting, probably more of an agency question. I think Tracy is runs like a small agency. Do you like kind of report on the like peak AI or like all these kind of forecasting off of AI? Like how do you kind of share that either for yourself or for your clients? Did you just log into peak once a week? Does it send or whatever tool you are looking for kind of getting that before website impressions?
Yeah, so for Peak specifically, we've been requesting a Looker Studio connection. I believe they said they're working on it. So I don't think it's available yet. It's one of the downsides, to be honest. So right now, our clients are actually quite happy with us going in, taking a screenshot of the reporting, and then sending it over to them. And then if they have any additional questions, we'll do some manual analysis there. So not the best experience yet, but that's something that, I mean, we probably nag the Peak team at least once a week.
Got it. Cool.
All right, we'll continue. All right, so let's talk about how to actually increase your visibility. So my co-founder Alex talks about this book, The Power Broker, a lot. I have not read it, but I'm sure a lot of folks have probably heard about it. And we use this as an example because it's a clear example of like surround sound and just something being ubiquitous. So let's say you're at a cocktail party, you're asking like, what's your favorite book? One person says, have you read The Power Broker? That's one data point. You're probably not very likely to go buy the book right off that, unless if they're a very influential person who you trust a lot. But you can think of just the number of product mentions will increase the likelihood of you buying a product. And of course, this is not a scientific chart, but I'm sure we can experience that in our own lives where we keep hearing about this thing. And if you're at a cocktail party and people just keep saying, "Oh, you definitely got to read The Power Broker," or whatever book. Like for me, it was The Three Body Problem. It was like you just start hearing from everybody. All of a sudden, your favorite podcast is talking about the book. All of a sudden, there's a news article about the author who wrote the book, and you're just surrounded by this thing. And so you start moving up that curve, and eventually you think, "Oh, let me just go check Amazon. Oh, wow, nearly 3,000 people rated this book very highly, and I can just get the audiobook for free. Maybe I'll just get it." And that's the thing about buying products, right? Like we keep hearing about it, we eventually check it out, perhaps we purchase it, oh, great, it's the people who recommend it are vindicated. We really enjoy the book or the product. And then we actually go not only tell people about the book, but we tell people about how we found out about the book. So there's another meta level there as well. And that's really how you should think about AI search right now. It's another medium to be ubiquitous across the customer journey touch points. And I say across the customer journey touch points because it's not about trying to be everywhere, unless if you're like ClickUp or Monday.com or HubSpot, where you can buy Super Bowl ads and literally be everywhere. That's one strategy. But if you have constrained budgets like we do, you want to be very thoughtful about where you appear. And that means like not just showing up for every single prompt in LLMs, but for the prompts that matter when people are searching about a challenge or a pain point or a solution they're looking for. So the two ways that we've been talking about this is one, you can either be the source that LLM cite. So create some sort of primary source material. This might just be a blog post, it might be a product page. We'll get into some more examples there. The second is to be included in the cited source. So if a page is getting cited, you just want to make sure you're on that page as well. All right, so let's get into being the source. A point that should drive some confidence here is I know a lot of folks talk about Reddit being cited a lot and Wikipedia and things like that, but 50% of the cited sources are businesses and services page websites. So this should help you feel a bit more confident that, hey, I don't need to compete directly with Wikipedia. Like I can show up regardless. So for example, this is a company, one of our clients that we've worked with called Synkware. That's Syncware. And they have like an e-commerce integration platform, like middleware, kind of like Zapier, specifically for enterprise e-com. And they wanted to show up when people search for an integration with Faire and Shopify. Now, this is a pretty new website. I think they've been around for like a handful of years, and they didn't do much SEO or content, and they're showing up for this very targeted prompt. And all they have is this product page about integrating Faire with Shopify using Synkware, and this blog post about the best ways to integrate Faire and Shopify. So this gives you an idea of how straightforward it might be to influence LLMs and be cited. It's a very specific prompt, it's a very specific pain point, and they only have 2 pages that answer those questions. So this is a very noisy slide. We'll share the recording and the slides as well. But some examples of things that will help you get cited in LLMs. None of this is groundbreaking. I think the only thing that's really interesting here is knowledge-based documentation is very important now because if someone's researching your product, if a developer is researching how it integrates or how to use the REST APIs and all that, you want to make sure that you actually have documentation about all that because these LLMs are actually serving those things. If you don't have documentation, maybe it doesn't exist. So one format of pages that we're finding a lot are listicles. So listicles are still alive, surprise, surprise, not the most exciting type of content, but LLMs use these listicles to inform what products they recommend. So if you're on a bunch of listicles, you are more likely to be cited or recommended in these outputs. And the phrase that I'm using a lot now that I think a lot of peers in the SEO world are landing, kind of converging on right now is good GEO is rooted in good SEO. And I think news has come out that ChatGPT does use the Google search results to inform what pages to cite. So it's not always 100%, but if you're on page 1 of the search results for a search, or then you're more likely to appear in a similar prompt. So listicles help. Reviews and comparisons are a contentious point, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but I want to point out reviews and comparisons because this tends to be a very contentious content format with companies that we've worked with. I think for startups, easier. For more established companies or folks with very risk-averse leadership teams, they don't want to write comparison pages comparing them against a competitor or to create listicles that mention a competitor for fear of shining light on a competitor or giving them more credit or potentially losing a client. But there's kind of 2 ways to think about this. One is prospects are already looking at your competitors. Like just because you don't mention them on your page doesn't mean you're not looking at them. Second is if your competitors are the ones writing these listicles, positioning their product against yours, they're controlling the narrative, and that is what's going to get ingested into LLMs. So if um, what's an example I want to use? If HubSpot writes HubSpot versus Salesforce, and Salesforce doesn't write anything, guess what? HubSpot's informing the LLMs on how to position HubSpot against Salesforce, which is to Salesforce's detriment. And that's including all the other content out there about HubSpot versus Salesforce. But you, as the primary person at that company, you want to influence those outputs as much as you can. The rest are pretty straightforward. The last one I'll point out is that persona use case pages are getting more important from what we're seeing right now. One of the clients that we worked with, they're a learning management system. And to date, all their messaging has been very broadly generic that they're the best learning management system. That's their listicles, that's their homepage, that's their product page. They serve many different verticals. They know what their most important verticals and industries are, but they didn't have a lot of content targeting those industries. And so if someone were to search best learning management system for hospitality or best learning management system for fintech companies, they didn't show up. And so now the thinking is, okay, we need a page specifically about this use case for hospitality companies, for fintech companies, and a blog post about best learning management systems for hotels, for restaurants, for banking or financial services, and so on, because people are writing pretty specific prompts, right? They're not just going to write best learning management system. They're going to ask, what's the best learning management system for a large bank based in the US or something like that. You want to make sure you're peer for that. So this is where it's important to know who your ICP is and speak to them specifically.
How does that work in relation to like building out? It's almost like kind of programmatically, right? Like I feel like the classic Zapier. I feel like Zapier always caught the heat and the flack and probably some of the benefit of like where you're doing like, I don't know how to use. Let's just give an example of like, like Zapier for dentists and like Zapier for whatever orthodontists, and then Zapier for like local ophthalmologists, right? And there's like you're kind of like going through every single one, and like you just hit select all for like every specific, not just like local professional services. Like that's the bucket category. How are you kind of seeing that relationship between true programmatic of like insert vertical versus like I don't know, choosing five, or I don't know, how do you balance that relationship between those?
My mind goes in a lot of different directions there. If I were a small startup and I was able to run that program at a very low cost, I might do that. I might spin up all those pages and see what hits, because I'm not concerned about whether that's going to negatively impact me. But that's me being a bit scrappy. I'm not telling anyone that they should do that. I have more tolerance for risk than some people. If I were a more established company, I would start with, well, what are the primary industries we're reaching now? Like, what does our customer base look like that we don't have pages serving? If 40% are in hospitality, 20% in banking, etc., great. Those are pretty big chunks of your customer base. Make sure that you continue to pull similar prospects into your funnel. There's going to be a long tail, and that's kind of up to who, I don't know who the decision maker would be in some of these orgs, but maybe it's like the VP of marketing or CMO or even like the CEO to decide, do we want more of these folks in the long tail? And does the LTV to CAC actually make sense? Maybe they actually churn at a very high rate, so we don't want those long tail. But these 4 industries that we serve, that our customer base is in, let's focus on these. So it does come back to product marketing, because I mean, this is the trade-off or decision we always have to make, right? Like, do we go broad or do we go specific? And what are the resource guardrails that we have available? We tend to say, hey, go specific. We can definitely serve like early stage startups, but they tend to want to move extremely quickly. They tend to have very small budgets. They tend to churn because like they expect it to be working directly with one of us and like be on a call every single day. Just different expectations. So yes, we can serve them, but we don't want to. So let's focus on these other companies instead.
Got it. Nice. And then is like there like anything that you like, I guess the kind of the tip here on like creating too many pages? And I've heard like in the news or things like, oh, we only like LLMs will only index 100 pages of your site or whatever it might be. So don't want to like go create like 1,000 pages for all these different types of things. Have you seen that, or is it kind of like, I don't know, the headline buzz that gets the click versus, I always like, again, I always think of Zapier, where I'm like, dude, if you look at their sitemap, you're like, there are like 1,000,000 pages.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I'm like, if it's working, like, I don't know anyone at Zapier personally, or like I haven't talked to their CMO, but like, does that work, or like would you kind of guide people away from kind of going for those bigger pages quickly? I don't know. That question makes sense there.
Yeah. I'll take that and let me know if I'm going in the right
Yeah.
direction or if you're asking something else. So I would not worry about some of those quote benchmarks, mainly because it's highly dependent on the website. So we have one client, they're publishing thousands of programmatic pages per day. But what they're doing is they're monitoring their Google Search Console and making sure that they're not completely screwing over their crawl rate. They're making sure all the pages are actually getting indexed, and they're being very thoughtful about it. And they already have a big website to start. So very context dependent. What I would say is for startups who want to do that, there's two angles. There's one, if you're risk on and you want to do that and you're not too concerned about your site being penalized, go for it. Candidly, I would do that because we kind of want to show like accelerate as much as possible and be able to iterate really quickly and get that data, see what's working, see what's not. You also need to be thoughtful about whether that content is actually good. So we've followed some companies who were running this type of program, spun up not even a lot, but like maybe dozens or hundreds of pages per day. And after a few months, they actually shut down that part of their website. They were smart enough to put on a subdomain, wasn't working. You got no organic traffic, and they just shut it down. Some clients come to us saying they want to do that, and we say, we're not saying no, but you have no content on your website right now. So sure, you can produce a bunch of content with AI, but if you actually care about sounding different, you want to make sure that the content reflects your brand tone of voice, reflects your product positioning, can talk about your product accurately, you need a better foundation to train it on rather than just going to ChatGPT and telling it to write thousands of articles. That's the main skepticism I have for a lot of these AI writing tools that say reduce the cost and write a blog post in 5 minutes is what's the training based on? And if you don't have any sort of body of content that you would feel proud of publishing on your site to train it on, then that quality is going to be very low. So I would just recommend, hey, produce some content, the expensive, maybe human way, really make sure your QA is strong, and then think about how you scale from there.
Yeah, love it.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. All right. So now let's talk about how to be included in sources. So this is quite straightforward. We want to show up whenever people look up best GEO agencies or best SEO agencies. This is one of the pages that we found got cited quite frequently in these LLM outputs. We just happen to know this person. So my co-founder actually emailed the person and said, hey, can we get a link here? But a lot of this happens through just very manual outreach, right? So there's going to be a lot of types of pages that get cited. It might be editorial lists, it might be review websites, it might be forums and communities, could be product pages, but you're not going to get mentioned on a competitor's product page. Could be integrations or partner pages, or even social media mentions. So this is a very similar muscle to, candidly, outbound sales or link building. You need to put in your target prompts into a tool like Peak AI. You figure out what the most cited pages are. Of that, you filter down what pages are actually feasible to get mentioned on and which ones you're not mentioned on. So if you find that there's a bunch of listicles getting cited for this given prompt, great. Scrape the URLs for those listicles. See if you're cited or if you're mentioned on those listicles or not. If you're not mentioned, figure out who you need to reach out to get on those lists. I will say that the industry is quite mature right now, and a lot of folks are actually charging for that type of stuff because they know how valuable the real estate is. Similar for review sites. If you go to like G2, you'll see that if you look at a software category page, top 4 results are sponsored ads. But those pages are informing the LLMs. So the other way to approach those is to do customer marketing, to get reviews, to get hopefully positive reviews. You can't tell them to write a positive review. So just make sure that's included there. Sponsor placements are important. Folks are talking a lot about Reddit. Extremely hard to break into. We're starting to test out some of these things for ourselves, just naturally. Like, I was never a Reddit user. I'm learning to use it. I love Reddit now. But folks are trying to game Reddit, and we'll get into this in a bit, but that's kind of a losing game, because no amount of manual Reddit outreach is going to overcome the amount of organic engagement happening on Reddit. So if people really don't like your product and they're being very vocal about it on Reddit, no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to undo that just by going into every Reddit thread and saying that you have a good product, right? So it all comes back to creating a brand that people love that is worth mentioning. So I'm going to pause here because I don't just want to go through this row by row, but if there's any questions while I take a drink of water. All right, we'll continue. So on that last note, this is one of the most cliched things, but it's becoming really important again. Outreach tactics are really these short-term boosters to AI discovery. And yes, doing all this outreach to these list goals will help influence LLMs. But guess what? If you're, say, HubSpot, which they're quite big now, but if you're writing an article about the best CRMs, HubSpot and Salesforce is going to be on there. I can't even think of another CRM right now. But you want to make sure that your brand is ubiquitous. And by nature of being ubiquitous at the main touch points, you will start that flywheel and continue to be mentioned. We have an article about the surround sound SEO approach, which is very similar to what we're talking about here. And the thinking is, hey, if you rank on page 1 of the search results for a given keyword or a software term, guess what? When someone's writing about the best software in this category and you show up, you're going to continue appearing in those lists. And another way to think about this too is if people aren't actually recommending your product, your brand, LLMs probably won't either, because those are going to be the things that show up on Reddit organically. It's going to be the things that people will decide to write about. And this all comes back to, I mentioned it a couple of times, but like product marketing, your foundations. Do you have a good product? Do you have clear messaging and positioning? Are you doing things worth talking about? So, maybe brand is coming back to the forefront for a lot of folks. And we like to quote Stefan from CXL a lot. So he is head of marketing at CXL. And if you're in marketing, CXL. And he talks about how they didn't try to hack anything. They just put out valuable content for years. So people just naturally say, oh, you need to take a digital analytics course, go to CXL. Or you need to take an SEO course, go to CXL. And now people on the internet are just saying, hey, it's better than Udemy. It's worth the investment. And if people don't recommend you, no model will either over time. All right. Any questions there?
I think that's like super like relevant. Like be like I think be something worth talking about. Like be interesting enough and like good enough that it is worth talking about. I think is like the most impactful thing that the majority of people don't get. I thought to our team all the time. I'm like, we gotta do something that's like unique and special, and like that also is good. So I totally get that.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be some large marketing campaign. It could be in very simply, hey, when someone buys your product, what's their first touch point for onboarding like? What's the onboarding experience like? They're going to talk about those experiences, and they're going to, when someone asks them for a recommendation, they're going to say, oh, I had this great experience with this company or this product. They took care of me, et cetera, et cetera. And that flywheel really pays off. That's it. Any other questions?
Oh, I thought you were frozen. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I think does anybody have if anyone has any questions, like ask them now. I think David, let's while people are thinking of their questions and ruminating on that, what if you were to like attack something, around like say for example, you as Omniscient, an agency, we're like, let's build an SEO tool, right? Because you're like, that sounds like a good idea. We're obviously going to be able to do that because we're a development agency as well that no one knew about, and it's like, it was a great idea. If you were to do that, could you like walk me through like, hey, how would I go about this of like entering the market as if you have like 100% knowledge of the space, like you use all the tools, you know what's out there, you'll do a lot of research, like obviously you just because you're in it. What would be like your kind of go to market of like for your content program? If you're to do that, like just kind of off the top of your head, like, hey, we're building this SEO tool. Here's exactly what it would do. Like, not what it would do. Like, you don't have to build a product in front of us, but like, here's like kind of my content strategy would be for that. Like, listicles out the wazoo, or like I'd do program, whatever what that is. Like, let's let you riff of like, hey, let's build this product marketing for this tool that you hypothetically would build.
Yeah. So at a high level, is it like, hey, if you're building a product in a saturated space, how would you go to market
Yeah,
with it?
saturated space where like you think that yours is better because you like this, like you're in it, right? You're in it to win it. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, one, I would not build an SEO tool. That's like I feel like that's a bloodbath.
Yeah.
But if we were building a product and we thought we could compete, where I would start is, it's going to sound very cliche, but I would start with customer research. Like, let's say if we were going to be competing with the likes of Ahrefs or SEMrush, which would be challenging, or ClearScope, even these existing LLM visibility tools like Profound or Peak, we would start with talking to people who use these tools and say, hey, what do you hate about these tools? What do you enjoy? What's missing? What do you wish they did? Like, for example, with Ahrefs, I just spoke to another client the other day, and we were like, I can't believe Ahrefs forces you to pay for the enterprise tier for API access. I don't know if anyone at Ahrefs is on here, but it kind of sucks. And that's one point of differentiation I might have. Like, maybe the go to market is, hey, we're going to have API access. We're going to have data that is as good as Ahrefs, which would be extremely difficult to do because they have a massive database. I would want to hear what folks don't like about SEMrush, and all this is available, right? I would use all information to figure out where the gap in the market is or what people are unsatisfied about, and use those as my like attack points. A company that did this really well at the time, which I have to give props, was like Dave Gerhardt at Drift. When Drift came out, they were like the conversational marketing platform. Forums are dead. HubSpot's like old on all of that. And as annoying as it was, it worked. Like, it allowed Drift to get a lot of this market swell up front, kind of being a newer product, like very buggy product, but they had a really strong messaging and strong positioning that people were willing to give it a shot. At the end of the day, like, I don't think conversational marketing really became a thing, but that gave them the wedge to then expand and do all these other things with their product. So I would try to find that wedge of what's going to get people to pay attention and actually use our product. We're working with a client right now, and they're doing this really well. It's a very commoditized space. It's like inbound AI marketing tools. So they have like AI chat, AI email, AI call. If you call a number, if you chat in, if you email the support email, you get an AI, and they compete with qualified, sort of Drift. And people are so unhappy with qualified and Drift that they're willing to try this new product from this new startup, and they're getting people to switch over. They got them on pilots, and now they're signing contracts. But it's because they were able to speak to these particular pain points and challenges that the market wasn't getting, or like getting solved by these existing products.
Yeah. Love it. Love the like the qualitative approach, not just like, I feel like 4 years ago it'd been like, I'm gonna do 100 content articles per day on each of these topics, and then you're like, okay, like that's more like if you point in the wrong direction, you're gonna end up in the wrong spot. Oh, you're muted, but yeah, I'm sure it's
Yeah, I would say I would figure out that messaging and positioning. I'd test it out with outbound, and if outbound worked, I would go after
nice.
those users.
All right, one question here from Tracy is, have you found any difference in quality of leads that come from various LLMs, or like, I'll embellish this also, is like being able to like influence any specific LLMs. Like, if you find that like ChatGPT is like way better than whatever else, like, can you do anything about that in addition to this?
Yeah. I haven't been able to say the difference between the LLM sources, because ChatGPT is just by and large most of that traffic. Gemini is like a close second. I think Claude is there as well. Perplexity, not so much for us. DeepSeek, maybe one or two here and there. But But we do find that folks who come in through LLMs have a higher commercial intent. So the hypothesis is they've probably already done a ton of research through LLMs, and maybe they have a massive thread, and at some point they say, okay, this company or this product, I'm going to go Google them, or I'm going to click on this link from the LLM search. And that's where we find the disconnect, because people self-report that they came from an LLM, but they might have came from Google search if you look at last touch attribution. But a lot of the folks that we get through ChatGPT, I think this is a newer thing. I think it's happening just by nature of it being end of year. So more folks are looking for new vendors. Is we're actually getting a lot of leads we don't want to work with, because of small budgets or just not within our ICP. So I would say that conversion rate might be going down as more people are using these platforms to essentially find vendors, but they do still have higher commercial intent. So it's not like a random person just landed on an article and now wants to work with you. That happens less frequently.
Got it. Funny story here before we wrap things up is we have a two-step form on our contact page. So step one is that, and then like the second form is actually a different page. So like you submit a form. If you are qualified, then it redirects you to like book a call. That book a call is actually a different URL. Like it's not just a form that like you hit next and then like it's a two-step form. ChatGPT has been sending people directly to the contact page to book a call. So it happened like twice where like the most remarkably unqualified people, like literally just like absolutely like would never even possibly like in the realm of like, hey, like 1/10 of the budget would not even be approved. And
Yeah.
they just booked a call because ChatGPT sent them to the thank you page of like after that you submit a contact form. And I was like, this, yeah.
Is the page no indexed, or I'm curious how they landed there?
It's indexed. Like it's
Oh,
like
okay.
like we haven't done anything. Like it's not like a special like, oh, we're trying to hide this really. Like we weren't trying to like hide it. Like it's not. There's nowhere to get to it except for like on the redirect of that
Yeah.
form. But it's just really funny where I'm like, how did someone book this call without submitting the form, like the contact form? And that was
Yeah.
just a little random. Like I don't know, it's kind of funny.
I have a hunch that's happened for us a couple of times as well, where someone books a meeting. I'm like, wait, we have an automation. So if someone fills out the MQL form, we get a notification. We
Yeah,
never got that notification.
yeah.
But they booked a meeting. So, but I think our page is no index. So I'm not sure how that's happening.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just funny it happened to us. So, but yeah, I think overall, David, it's been a super awesome pleasure having you here. I think everyone's really liked it, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of requests. So, how can people get in contact with you if they're like, "Oh my goodness, we need some omniscient in our life"?
Yeah, so it's not the easiest to spell, but we're at beomniscient.com, or you can find me at LinkedIn, David Lee Kim. That's Lee, Ly, Kim, Khim. Please connect.
Awesome. Well, if anyone else has any questions, if you're watching the recording, feel free to email me. I'll make sure David gets your questions if you do have them, and we will go from there. So without any further ado, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you guys in the next one.